Hey, and welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to look at making smart tags, smart keynotes, in fact. And, that's cool. What does that do? Well, it's going to allow us to place an annotation, in this case, a tag that we make, and have a schedule populate all that information that we can put on a sheet and organize all of our data with these nice smart keynotes. Before we get into it, if at any point in this video you happen to learn something, my gosh, please demolish that like button. It really helps me out a lot, a lot, a lot. Okay, let's get into it. So, what are we looking at here, really? Well, this is just a basic floor plan, and it doesn't matter what it is, but maybe I want to start making notes all over it. And so, the first thing we could do is we could always add text. Like, that's always an option. But, I'm not necessarily a fan of just using text, like plain text. And then why is that? Because it's information that it's not smart enough. So, like, let's say something changes. Well, then, the text will never change. Not only will it not change, it won't move. But what do we want to do as far as making it smart? Well, we want it to maybe update based on some changes that we make. Now, this smart tag won't exactly do that, but it will change universally. So let's say you have the same tag anywhere else in the project, or in fact, anywhere else in the view. Well, it's going to pull the same information. And also, if you change it in one place, it will change everywhere else, which does, in fact, make it smart. And that's kind of the whole reason we're calling this smart, because it is smart in that regard. Now, it's not going to update based on certain things that you change in the model unless you have those linked to text or whatever. You can take it farther if you want, but we're only going to take it as far as we do in this video, which is just a keynote that pulls data that is going to end up being text, but that is going to be scheduled, and it will be smart in that you can place multiple tags of the same type and then have them show up anywhere in the project that you want, and then still display everything in a nice table, nice schedule that has it all right there. So what do we do? Well, there's two things we can do. We can make our own tag, or we can use really any tag that's in Revit. I like I like a nice little circle tag with a number, and that's kind of it, because we're going for keynotes. Now, you might be familiar with like actual keynotes, which is, these literal keynotes, and it involves a text file, and it's not that that's crazy, but I find that I don't need to use that in a lot of my projects, and really I don't use it. Not to say you can't, not to say there are not advantages to it, but there's no real reason to, for the most part, because you can get by without it, is all I'm saying. So what this tag is doing is I'm calling it keynotes, but don't confuse it with these kinds of keynotes. This is still not dealing with the text file, nothing like that. It is just simply a user specific, user inputted data to a particular tag that is a little smarter than your basic text box. So what we need to do is actually create this tag family. So how can we do that? Well, obviously let's go to new and then family. And with this, we want to make sure we go to annotations. And this is not going to be a true tag, but it's going to serve as a tag and like look like a tag and function like a tag. But I actually just want to use generic annotation. That's really it. So when we come in here, obviously we don't want this text. We can zoom in here, and all we really need to do is just dump a label in here. So just place a label, and you'll notice I don't have any parameters. So let's go ahead and make one. I'll just call this, type mark. That's perfectly fine. And you can call it type mark, whatever you want, but it's actually going to be an instance parameter. And again, I want to make sure this is text. There's nothing really special about this, but I want it to be text. I'll click OK. Great. I mean, look at that. And so I'll add this here, and maybe I want to, I'm going to use numbers. Okay. So like 2-digit numbers, that's fine. 0, 1, all the way up to 100. If you have 100, my gosh, that's way too many. So I'll make way too many tags. So I'm only ever going to have up to 99 tags, which is in its of itself too many. So let's get this, pretty much centered. And so this is pretty good. Maybe what I want is this at a 1/4 inch. So I'll go ahead and make this a 1/4 inch text size, 1/4 inch. There we go. Click OK. That looks pretty good. Maybe what we want to do is make sure this is opaque, that if we have something behind it, that yeah, there it is, opaque. We don't have anything showing up. We can make sure that we see the tag. And then finally, probably what I want to do is make sure it doesn't look just like floating numbers. I can go ahead and come here and add just a circle that's like 1/4 inch so that it all fits. So cool. I mean, this is a pretty good looking tag or annotation, whatever you might want to call it. We've centered this up pretty well. Looks good. And so at this point, you might say, well, what happens if you change the scale in your drawing to an eighth, a 16th, whatever? This won't change. The size of this won't change. It's based on everything I draw here, unless I add parameters to something like this diameter or radii value, that dimension there. I can add a parameter that would change it from a 1/4 inch to an eighth or anything like that. I can also add a parameter that would change the scale of this text size. You could do that if you want, and I'm not going to do that in this video, but that would allow you to have more scales, different types of the same family tag here. So with this looking pretty good, it is. I can go ahead and load this in my project. I don't need to save it. That's perfectly fine. And then we can just really just place that anywhere. And this is kind of what we want. And so at this point, I really can just put in my O1, and that's cool. That's what I want. And so you'll notice with the generic annotations and like actually it's a symbol more or less. If you go to symbol, I can see that here's my family of 3. That's perfect. Please rename your families. Unlike me, you have that right here. But the nice thing with symbols is that I can add a leader. I can add a leader. That's awesome. And look, there's my leader. I can literally tag just like this. That's really cool. And not only that, I have more properties and things that I can work with when it comes to the leader. Right now, I have all of these different options. Of course, maybe I want to add an arrow that looks good. I mean, that looks literally like a tag, and it is a tag at this point. So that's cool. So what I can do over here is, I now have something that I can use to tag. Of course, maybe at this point you'll notice I've cutting off the circle a little bit. So what I probably want to do is maybe change this from opaque to transparent. Just have to be cognizant of what's behind it. That's perfectly fine. I can load this back in and override it. And now I can see that I've got my full circle there. Of course, I can change this to any number I want. It's working all the same. And so really at this point, we're trying to get the information now. We have the tag. So where does the information come in? Well, that's when we need to actually come back into the family and allow us to input text here. So let's go ahead and edit the family. And really all I need to do is create another parameter. We've seen this before, but I want to make sure that's, we can make it within the label or not. And, really it doesn't necessarily need to be in the label. So let's go ahead and come up here and I'm going to make a new parameter. And we're going to call this, it could be text, it could be comment, it could be keynote. I'll go ahead and call it keynote because that's going to be really what it is. I'm going to make this an instance parameter because we want this to be literally per tag instead of, per tag type. And again, this is text, nothing too special. Cool. Click OK. Again, load this into my project. I'll override it. And here we go. Now I can click on it and I can see that, yeah, look, I do have this keynote and I can add anything here, wall, like this is a wall. Cool. So that's it. That's my information. Now, even still, how do we schedule this? Where is this showing up? What's the point here? Well, that's where it starts to get fun. So let's go up here and we're going to go to view schedules and actually use a note block. It's going to literally look like a schedule. But what are we looking at here? So note block is going to pull all of our generic annotation families, and there's a lot of versatility with note blocks, but in particular with the smart keynotes, this is where it comes into play. I get to choose any one of these different families that are generic annotations or symbols to use to begin the schedule and like literally pull and schedule information based on that annotation. And in this case, I want to use family 3 because it's my tag and I didn't rename it, and please rename it. So I'll click OK. And this is where things start to get fun too. Now, I have count, which I don't really care about unless you want to count them. I've got my keynote, I've got type and mark. And so all these are like defaults within the generic annotation. So I want type mark for sure, because that's going to allow me to pull in my number and reference that. But then I've got my keynote, which is great because it's literally pulling that text information from that label or that, the tag family, the annotation family. And so great, we'll click OK and see what happens. And so here we are. Look at that. This is literally all the information that we want. I don't want to call this note block, so let's call this floor plan notes. That's probably a good name. Remember, we can zoom in here by pressing and holding control and so zooming in like that. So there's my type mark and there's my keynote, like really cool. Maybe what I want to do is center this up. You can really do anything you want, of course. Center this up. What I like to do under my title is click it and then click shading and then just make it this lightest gray. Click OK, and it pops pretty well. It looks good. And so at this point, you're like, well, okay, well, what is it? Well, it's a note block, and we can find it in our schedules down here. When I open my schedules, I can literally see there's note blocks, specifically note blocks, and there's floor plan notes. So we can start to see where this might be useful. If I make a new sheet, and I actually just made a new sheet, I'm on a sheet with no title block, I can go ahead and place that level 1 view that I was looking at, place it right there. And then I can also come up here to my note block and place that. Maybe I want to place it here. It doesn't matter. But you could see how this is starting to work and, really starting to work to our favor. Now, there's a few other things I want to do. Maybe I want to make this text bigger, maybe anything like that. More, all of that's kind of formatting, but that's perfectly fine. I can make this font, a 1/4 inch. This is just simply an override, things like that. Coming in here, I got a nice title and my information is starting to populate. And so really we're kind of getting to the point where this is looking good because now what I can do is always come into this view, click on this note, and I can change this. Maybe this is wall number 1. These are the worst notes ever, but it's okay. We'll come in here. I'm going to literally copy this, and once I copy this, I'll go ahead and put this leader at this other wall, and you'll notice it's wall number 1. Well, let's go ahead and call this wall number 2. Now, once I call this wall number 2, I still have 2 notes that are 01 and 01, like they're the same. But let's look at our schedule. So this is kind of interesting and something to be aware of. And that's really just based on what we're seeing here. Well, we literally see both of them. And so how can we combat this? What's the best way to deal with this? Well, that is in fact in the sorting. We don't want to itemize every instance. And I'll tell you why. And that's because you might have multiple 01s. In this case, we do. And we want to make sure that we are able to copy those wherever we want and reference the same note. Now, I'm going to click OK. And whenever I do that, we're going to get no information here. And that is because this is basically telling me that I have a tag place that is 01, or in this case, I have a tag place that has no information in it, or I have multiple 01 tags placed that have differing information in it. And that obviously we know if I come back here, I can see I have 2 with different information, one with wall number 1, and then one with wall number 2. And that is why. And so this is particularly good in this case because this tells me I need to address something, because I can come in here and I can choose to select this, come back to my view, and I can see, all right, where are they? Well, there's 2 here. And then I can go click them and see, all right, the text is wall number 1 and then wall number 2. Oh, I need to deal with this. So this is telling me I need to probably rename this type mark to 02. Cool. And so when I come back into my schedule, why don't I see anything? Well, I'm not exactly sure why, but what will help is if I sort this by type mark, I'll click OK. And now I can see, now that I've sorted by type mark, I can see my 01 and 02. That's cool. And I can do the same thing if I decide, let's reference another wall, because of course this makes sense. Come over here. We want to drag this leader down to this wall, and I'll call this 03 and make sure that we have wall number 3. Simple stuff. So 03, wall 3, and then I can see, there we go, 03, wall 3. Cool. You can see how this is starting to work. And so a lot of times what I'll do is it's just copying this 03 around. And because we didn't itemize every instance, we're not going to see multiple instances of this same 3. That's really it. Now, I will say, if you do want to change, let's say we want to change the text of this, what I need to do is select both the number 3s. That's just kind of the way it is. If I select all instances in view, I'm actually going to select them all, which kind of sucks. But that's why if I want to change 3, I can select them. But in fact, I don't want to do that necessarily. I want to come over here and change it in the schedule, because this will change all of them. If I make this wall number 5, I can come over here and I can see every single 3 is now wall number 5, both of them. I can select them both. I can change them individually, but I'd have to change both of them individually still to have it populate correctly in my schedule as O3 and then number 5. That's great. So this is looking good so far. And so at this point, we're good, we can use this anywhere. And we can tell because if I come to the site plan, and maybe what I do is in fact decide that I want to have notes on the site plan too. I can come over here to my symbol. I can place this here. And again, maybe we want to call this O3 and then we have wall number 5, and you'll see it populate there. Cool. Want to make a leader. And there we go. Now, let's go ahead and add my note block here. Or go ahead and back to the sheet and look at my note block. And it's all fine. Nothing has changed. Now, the second I go to my site plan and we make this 04, and I want to call this exterior wall or something. Okay, there's 04, exterior wall. I come to my floor plan notes and I can see 04 exterior wall. So this is project wide, like it's pulling from everything. Now, this may not be what you want, and it's typically not what I want because exterior wall called out on the site plan is not a floor plan note, and that's the case. It's not. Now, you could have one running list for the whole project if you want. Like if you're tracking alternate, that's a great way. I've tracked alternates and I've called it out on every kind of view that it is. It doesn't matter. That's cool. That's a way to do it if it's a project-wide thing. Now, a lot of times it's not going to be if you're using this because I have floor plan notes, I have site plan notes, I have roof plan notes, I have roof demo notes, I have floor plan demo notes, I have all kinds of notes if you're doing this, that is. And of course, what we want to do is find a way to split this up. So it's like any other schedule. We need to find a way to filter this site information out. So if we come into filter right now, there's not a great way. There's a type mark, and you could say, well, anything over 3 in this case, or anything over a certain number is a part of the site. But then you have to keep managing that to the nth degree, depending on the number of schedules you have. Well, and then we also can't filter out by Keynote unless we have a certain few that we want to just migrate to a different schedule. That doesn't make sense either. So what's a good way to doing that? Well, we need to add a separate parameter to do that. And, how can we do that? What are we doing at this point? Well, what we can do is simply come in here and add a new parameter. And so this parameter is going to be called whatever you want it to be. You can call it filter, you can call it type, or like whatever you might be. I'm going to call it note type because I'm literally going to change the type of what these notes are depending on the schedule. Again, we want this to be instance. That's really it. And then we want this to be text. We want to have a little control over this. I'm not trying to do anything crazy or special here because it's text. So I'll click OK. And there we go. So we've got note type. And whenever I click OK here, I can see now I get note type here. Well, we don't want to see it. But what is this now doing? Well, it's giving me a little more power whenever it comes to my keynotes. So I'm going to click on this keynote and we can see, oh, I have note type here. Look how interesting this is. This is nice because it's going to allow me to determine the type that it is. So what is this? Well, these are floor plan notes. So I'll just type in floor plan because that's what it is. And we can see that it also populates here on my schedule. Again, we don't want to see this, but for the sake of this right now, I'm going to show this. And so these first 3 are floor plans. Okay, floor plan and then floor plan. You can select them all, click floor, whatever you want to do, but that works too. And then we've got this one, which is not a floor plan. We're going to call this site plan. Okay, cool. So what is this doing? Well, this is allowing me then to filter by my note type. And in this case, because I'm on my actual floor plan notes, I want to make sure that equals floor plan. Look at that. That's cool. Click OK. That's perfect. That's exactly what we want. So what are we going to do? Now we want to make another one. Well, I can come over here and, I can, again, wall number 12. If this is wall number 12. So we can note number 4, and then maybe this is wall number 12. And again, I still have my note type as floor plan. And I come over here and I can see, yep, there's my wall number 12, keynote number 4. Great. That's cool. So I'll, rename this to number, rename this to keynote, whatever. Cool. Like this is a good looking schedule. Now, again, we have a site that we need to deal with, site notes. What do we do? Well, I literally just duplicate this. And so now I have floor plan notes, copy one. Well, I want to rename this to be site plan notes. And look at that. That's cool. Now, all we need to do is change our filter. So our filter now becomes equals floor plan to site plan. You want to click OK? Boom, there we go. We have our site plan notes. Now, again, I don't want to see this one, so let's just hide the column. That's it. That's all we need to do. And then I can come back to my floor plan notes again and just hide this. That's great. Hide it. Boom, right there. Easy stuff. Now, what we could have done is we could have not added this number within the generic annotation itself. We could have added it within the schedule and it would have added it to it afterwards. So really all you need to do with the tag family is simply add that one type and that's it. And we can add the keynote or whatever. Honestly, you don't need anything other than just a label that you can change. And then after that, you can make everything else within this schedule and then populate it elsewhere. So we've got our site plan notes, our site plan. We can make anything that we want here. So whatever this might be, new grass. Cool. Yeah, we want some new grass out here. Well, we don't want to call this new grass. We want to call this 01, and then we want our keynote to be new grass, because who doesn't want new grass on the site? So there we go. We've got 01 and 04 here. We come back to our site plan notes, and there it is, 01, 04. I can change this here. We've seen this before. Really great and really simple. What I can always do, I don't know why you'd want to do this, but if we want to keep populating our note blocks and all of our, if maybe you have one sheet that shows all your notes and it's just, I don't know, you can do it any way you want, but it's cool. It's a nice way to keep this project wide. You've got your notes, which is just a generic annotation. You can have the same numbers. Obviously you can see we have 01 and 01 in both of these schedules. It's a really great way of organizing notes, making presentations really simple to understand based on your notes, and then really update this however you want. Because like I said, maybe something changes and you realize, oh, I got that text wrong, or maybe I have a typo. I can change all my threes at once by, selecting them and coming to the view, or just literally updating it here. That's now actually wall 7. I'm sorry, I missed that. That's incorrect. So then I come over here and, all my number 3s are wall number 7. So it's great. In this way, it's smart. Now, the only way it's going to update is if you update it, and the only way you can do anything with it is if it's associated to a particular schedule and whatever. You can use global parameters, pulling from something else if you want. That's great. But for the sake of this, I'm not doing that. It's nothing all that special, but it's smart enough to where I can change text as I need to and update my tags everywhere. So that's it. Really, that's going to do it for this video. I sure hope you learned something. If you did learn something, please demolish that like button. It really helps me out a lot. And, let me know if you have any questions on how to do this. It's pretty simple. We made the family, which is simple, but, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you get some value out of this. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for watching.